Hi, Jovanna. Let's take a look at your new essays today. We've got the shoe sales, so let's see what you said. Okay. The bar chart illustrates two models of shoes sold by 9 different countries belonging to the European continent during 2018. Yes, except it's not models exactly, it's just colors of shoes. So this isn't entirely accurate. Be careful with that. Accuracy is important when you're aiming for a high score. The worst sales among all the countries was the brown leather type with less than 10 pairs sold in Belgium, whereas for the same color, around 135 pairs of shoes were sold in Poland. On the other hand, the most sold type of shoes was black leather, get rid of the, in Hungary, reaching around 140 pairs, while just 35 were sold in France, being the worst sales for the black leather type. Okay, I see what you did here. Let's see. First of all, you have to be careful with your data. You said 10 pairs, 140 pairs, but these 3 zeros here indicate that the numbers you're referring to should be in the thousands. So that's 140,000, 10,000, etc. I thought it was a little strange that you started with the lowest sales. It's a little counterintuitive. Usually we start with the highest and then we go to the lowest. I'm fine with the fact that you decided to talk about the outliers first. That's a smart way to do it. But again, I would have preferred if you had talked about the highest figure and then the lowest. Okay, fine. In Poland, the sales of brown leather shoes were double those of black leather, with 140,000 and 75,000 respectively. Similarly, the sales of the black leather shoe in France, no comma here, were half the sales of brown leather, with 35,000 and 70,000 pairs sold respectively. There were broadly similar sales of the black leather shoe type in Germany, Ireland, Holland, and Poland, between, get rid of the, 75,000 and 60,000 pairs. Selling the same type of shoes, selling the same amount of both shoe colors were Germany and I don't understand what you're trying to say here. What happened to Germany and Ireland? Let's take a look. Okay, Ireland, where are you? Okay, so they sold the same number of black leather. Fine. All right, so this isn't really very clear. There were broadly similar sales of the black leather shoe type in Germany, Ireland, Holland, and Poland between 75 and 60,000 pairs. With Germany and Ireland selling the same number. Overall, the popularity of both shoes varies among the 9 countries, with the most popular being black leather in the UK, Belgium, Hungary, and Italy, while in the rest of the countries, brown leather was preferred. Okay, so what I need to do here is I need to take a look at the data that you included. I kind of feel like you left some things out. That was my overall impression, but I do want to look at it. Like I said, I liked what you did with the outliers, but I wasn't really crazy about this paragraph. So I do want to look at it again just for a moment. I kind of looked at this in a cursory sort of way, and it looks like you included all of the countries. You know where my concern is? My concern was in this paragraph because it wasn't really clear what you were focusing on, what you were talking about really. I couldn't understand what the paragraph was about, okay? So it's kind of like a coherence and cohesion thing where you just don't know what the central idea is. So like I said, here it was pretty clear to me that you were talking about the outliers, the highest and the lowest. That was fine. Here you were talking about your overview. That was clear. That was fine. So here, what were you really doing? And so was what you did the best way to organize this data and to really kind of highlight the things that were important? So assuming that you've already talked about the outliers, what's left? Well, let's take a look at this chart and see. So given that you've already spoken about, let's see, Belgium and Poland, let's see, and Hungary and France, what you could have done is you could have maybe talked about in which countries brown shoes outsold black shoes. And you could have given a couple of important figures there. And then you could have said, in contrast, black leather shoes, etc., etc. So that was one way. But you do need to signpost these things. Explain to the examiner or your reader how you're organizing these things and why you've chosen to organize them the way you have. This is really important. So there is not just one way to do this task one. There's not one way to do any task one. Although there are some ways that kind of make themselves, I think, easier to read than some others. One of the things that I always enjoy is using these numbers along the side. I think they really, really help. So if I were going to write this, I probably would have done something similar to what you did, definitely focusing on the outliers, but I would have done it a little differently. When I get to my detailed paragraphs, I would have focused one paragraph just on black leather shoes. I think it makes for a cleaner description. I would have talked about, I wouldn't have had a separate paragraph for outliers at all, actually. I would have gone introduction, overview, and then I would have talked about the black leather shoes. I would have said highest figure anywhere on the chart was this. The second figure at over 100,000 was this. You see, I really like to use these numbers on the side. I think they really help. So yeah, I would have said that 3 countries sold over 100,000 black leather shoes. Of these, Hungary sold the most at that number, whatever that is. The second most was Italy, and Belgium rounded out the 3 at here. The least number of black leather shoes sold was in France, with whatever that number is. And then I would say the remaining countries, and I would name them UK, Germany, Ireland, Holland, and Poland, all sold between 50,000 and 100,000 black leather shoes. And then I would do something very similar for the brown leather shoes. So again, focusing on those extremes, on the highs, on the lows, and then just kind of grouping the rest of that information together because it's not super, super, super important. Let's take a look at your task 2 now about the negative effect of this shift away from traditional food on families, individuals, and society. Let's see what you said. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated the effects of substituting traditional food for fast food in many societies and its negative impact on the members of society. Good, I like that. Personally, I strongly agree. You agree with what? All you've said is that they've debated the effects. So it's not clear what you're agreeing with. However, some believe that the fast food industry, is the watershed between the antique and the modern era. This essay will argue some of the negative and positive effects using examples from the United Nations and the World Health Organization to demonstrate points and prove arguments. So far, I really like this. I like a lot of the vocabulary. I like the way you've organized it. I like that you've kind of left your position somewhere in the middle. So let's see how you actually develop this. All right, it should be on the one hand, not in, okay? So on the one hand, there is ample evidence that the surge of the fast food industry has enabled people to adapt to the fast environment of a modern society. Firstly, traditional methods of cooking most of the time require a lot of time and effort, here, forcing individuals to employ time cooking instead of developing other skills. Secondly, fast food is cheaper in comparison with traditional food at a restaurant, which makes it accessible for all. For example, a study performed by the United Nations shows that before the fast food era, individuals spent an average of 14 hours per week preparing meals, where whereas, not whether, whereas in 2018 the average was 4.5 hours. Okay. Fast food, the fast food industry opened the opportunity for all to have access to tasty food, as well as to make the modern fast life easier. Okay, that's a better way of saying it. I like what you wrote very much. There are a couple of changes I definitely want to see. You had your firstly, and then you went straight into your secondly. That is, you had your first main idea and your second main idea without actually developing either one of them. Then here, your example doesn't actually develop the second idea, but it develops the first idea. So I feel like this is not an entirely logical way to organize your ideas. In my opinion, any sort of support that you have should come directly after the sentence it supports. So I would have taken this right here, all of this, would have taken this and I would have put it right here. So in other words, I would flip these two sentences and then I would suggest having some sort of support for this sentence. It's cheaper in comparison, etc., etc. So you didn't have any support for that. You just kind of left it there. And what this is going to do is this is going to lower your task achievement score because you're not supporting your ideas. On top of that, it could potentially lower your coherence and cohesion score because there's not really a logical progression of ideas here. The ideas themselves are lovely, but when you have your point one and then you have your point two and then you have your support one, that just feels a little strange to me. Okay? So remember that whatever sort of main idea you have, you should have support for it. All right? And that support should come right after the idea. I do have another concern here, but before I get into that concern, I want to read your next body paragraph and then we'll talk about it more. On the other hand, although fast food has opened new horizons benefiting a sector of people, the negative impact on others cannot be diminished. This is largely because regular consumption of fast food brings serious health complications to individuals. Okay, like what? So here, I definitely want to see support. Additionally, eating on the run has disrupted the traditional regular family dinner. For instance, empirical research showed that some of the families lost the tradition of sharing meals completely, word order, making the bond among family members weak. Again, word order. Moreover, an extensive study by the World Health Organization capitalized these three words, showed a direct relationship between the consumption of fast foods and the risk of developing diabetes, vascular diseases, hypertension, and depression. Okay, you see, you did what I said before again, but we'll talk about it in a minute. Consistent with this line of thinking is that a new pandemic of obesity and depression is striking the public health around the world. Thus, the repercussions of replacing traditional food for fast food are damaging the health of individuals and impacting the family coexistence. All right, that's lovely. So check out what you did here. You've got main idea 1, then you've got main idea 2, and then you've got support 2, but then here you've got support number 1. Why do I say that? Because this piece of support actually develops the first main idea. So the coherence and cohesion is really lost here. The ideas are not organized appropriately. So again, it's really in your best interest to make sure that right after your main idea, you have your support. And then you have your next main idea, and then you have support for that particular main idea. I felt like your ideas were wonderful, but the way you organized them and ordered them was not appropriate. So another concern I had here was with families, individuals, and society. So I absolutely want to make sure that you talk about that. You talked, it was pretty clear, family, individuals, that was fine. Where do you talk about society? I guess it's here, yeah. So in other words, you said that it's very positive for society, but on the individual and family level, it's very negative. So that's clear. That's fine. You covered that. So essentially what we're looking at is two things. Number one, the order of your ideas, which for me was the biggest flaw in this essay, which I think I talked about at considerable length. But not just that. In this paragraph, you were actually arguing something that you never had support for. So for me, weakness number one here is coherence and cohesion, and then a secondary issue is task achievement. So let's look at your conclusion. From the examples and arguments, I firmly believe that although fast food is more convenient, eating traditional food benefits people in terms of physical and mental health. It is predicted that the innovation of the fast food industry incorporating important nutritional content in its foods, what? It is predicted, yeah, something happened grammatically here. It is predicted that, I know what you want to say. It is predicted that the fast food industry will no, I know what you want to say here. I really do. Let me see if I can rephrase it. How about this? An innovation in the fast food industry incorporating important nutritional content in its products that benefit the society in the future is predicted. Okay? So that's essentially what you're trying to say here. Okay, so I like a lot of what you're doing. I think you did a great job in many, many respects. So keep at it, keep working. You're doing really well. If you have any questions about my feedback today, please let me know. Write me in your next email any questions or concerns that you have so I can help answer them. Okay, great job, and I'm looking forward to your next set.